So good evening, everyone. I'm Allie.
And I'm Yanine, and this is Meet the Press.
So tonight what we want to talk about is performance-enhancing drugs in the NCAA. So obviously these have been a problem since the 1960s, and there's an anabolic steroid that we're worried about, a stimulant, human growth hormone, and supplements. So PEDs are a real threat to the athlete and the fair play. What my main issue is with the NCAA right now is that at this point the policies, penalties, and drug testing are inconsistent among different programs. So for an example is, let's say we go to Florida State. So let's say a player gets caught with some kind of performance-enhancing drug. That player could be set out for a whole season or even just half the season, but a different player at a different school could be set out for one game. And so what bugs me about that is that it's not consistent, is that you could be playing, Florida State could be playing Clemson next weekend, and one player could have just taken the same drug as him, but only be set out for that one game.
So what you're saying is that you want everybody to be just on one accord.
Yeah, so what I want the NCAA to do is have all the conferences come together and make a two-strike policy. I'm not quite sure yet what I think of the two-strike policy, but I want them to all come and make one consistent plan that they are all going to follow, and that they all come consistently together and have a drug testing system that happens.
Speaking of drug testing systems, let's move to Florida State's red shirt quarterback, Will Grier. We've learned that the red shirt quarterback is attempting to make an appeal. As the saying goes, you do the crime, you do the time. He knew the rules and regulations, and even before you join the league, you must sign a consent form saying that you understand the rules and regulations of the particular sport that you are trying to play. He made the choice, so I strongly believe that he should get more than a year. Why? Because he needs to think long and hard about the consequences and the choices that he made. So, therefore, he should reap it before pursuing his career into even thinking about going into the NFL. I know he has heard a story saying that it'll never happen to me. So you made the decision to take the drugs not knowing that this is going to change your career forever. Well, guess what, Mr. Grier? It is now you.
Okay, so you're thinking Will Grier's first strike should be more than a year?
Of course.
So you're saying you want to give up almost half his career just on his first strike?
What decision would you have made? Like, how would you have made your decision knowing that you should not be taking this banned substance, but you chose to do it? You chose to do it anyway.
Well,
I think he
we're
deserves
assuming that
more
he
than
did
a
it
year.
then. What if he didn't do it, but he's just going to get caught for something?
But guess what? He did do it, and he tested positive for it.
But testings can go wrong, or someone could be setting him up, or honestly, he could have just taken something that he really didn't know. So he should be punished his very first time getting caught.
Well,
for almost giving up half his career.
If he's taking something that he didn't know he was taking, him and whoever gave it to him should be punished.
But if he didn't know he was taking it, he should really be punished that heavily?
Yes. And I'm not changing my answer.
Okay, well, I think we should go to our viewers and see what they have to say.
Do you guys think that Will Grier should get more than a year, or should we follow the two-strike policy that Allie has came up with? Coming up, we have Bo and Nicole speaking on the current issues of head injuries in sports.
Concussions were once thought to be a part of the game, something you could just shake off after a big hit. But research has shown us much more than that, revealing lasting effects and permanent damage. There have been rule changes to many sports recently to limit the opportunity for concussion-producing contact. Flagrant 2 fouls in basketball and targeting penalties in football are just a couple. Leagues have also put emphasis on education of symptoms and the recovery protocol to ensure that if a head injury does occur, the athlete is safe and can immediately enter the recovery phase. The problem with diagnosing a concussion is there's no x-ray or definitive test that can be performed on the sideline. A lot of times the decision comes down to the athlete's self-reporting and a team doctor's judgment call. This leads to scary situations we've seen in recent weeks of athletes returning to the field of play after sustaining head injuries. Oklahoma quarterback Baker Mayfield took a helmet-to-helmet hit that clearly left him dazed, but he was allowed to return to competition with 13 minutes left in the first half, but then was pulled at halftime after reporting head injuries or headaches and nausea. Another example happened in the basketball court of Central Arizona, where guard Trace DeMeff was struck in the head and sent to the floor and staggered towards the sideline. Play was allowed to continue and even received a pass and made a three-pointer before falling back to the floor and timeout was called. The worst this year comes from Washington State, where quarterback Luke Falk was pulled from the game in the second quarter with a concussion, only to return after halftime. He was then allowed to play the next week, where he suffered another head injury and had to be carted off of the field. These oversights in diagnosing and treating concussions can put these athletes in serious danger. Returning to play can lead to further injury and permanent damage. While rule changes have helped, a new approach may be necessary to more accurately and independently diagnose these injuries. And here to introduce technology to do just that is Nicole Gleaton.
Thank you, Bo. Concussions are the most common reported injury in all sports. Since concussions are a more serious issue than they were about 20 years ago, 2 devices have been developed to help coaches and trainers detect when a player could possibly have a concussion. One device is an 8-inch strip that is placed in the top of the helmet underneath the padding, so the player does not even know he or she is wearing one. The strip works by detecting the force of a hit and will send a signal to the coach or a trainer's cell phone if a player is at risk of having a concussion. VentGuard is a mouthpiece device that is used to detect concussions. The device also sends alerts to coaches and trainers via Bluetooth. Since concussions are a serious issue in sports, all contact sports contestants should be required to wear one of these devices. Referees should inspect each player's helmet 1 hour before the game to make sure the device works properly, is properly placed at the top of the helmet underneath the padding, and most importantly, that each player has one to wear. Requirements of wearing one of these 2 devices will help protect players from more serious brain injuries. Guys, we'll be right back after these messages.